spent some 100, in my case, almost 2,000 hours into Path of Exile, tired of getting, I guess, bored with the usual grind of maps and bossing and stuff with that. Or maybe you're just new and you haven't really taken a keen liking to the skill system or the passive tree system or what have you. And maybe you're looking for something new. Maybe you've tried Grim Dawn or Diablo, but recently I've been dabbling a little bit in Last Epoch. Or Epoch, not Epoch, sorry. Somebody's gonna get triggered and say something, I swear, and I know it. But anyway, Last Epoch is a game by um, Thousandth Hour Studio or Games or something like that. 11th Hour, not Thousand. My bad. But anyway, you're like, well, what does Last Epoch have? It has 5 different base classes. Each base class has 3 mastery classes, so to speak. Although the Acolyte, Rogue, and Mage both are missing one respectively. Rogue with Falconeer, Mage with the Rune Master, and Acolyte without the Warlock. And even with 28 hours, I thoroughly enjoy the game, and I've only just recently got it, and the game's been out for 2-3 years now, and how I've yet to hear of this game is remarkable because the soundtrack, much like, excuse me, Path of Exile, is really good. I'll admit there's a lack of story, in my opinion, or the story is lackluster, therefore if you're looking for story elements, probably not going to be your stick because it's kind of like Path of Exile in that regard. Yes, there is some story, but you might have to dig around a bit to find what you're looking for to put lore together. As far as the progress in Last Epoch, this is what they currently have: is their first and second phases are completed, and if you're deciding the game's not for you right now, don't worry about it because it is still in early access. So at any point, there's a chance that you may want to look at it and say, I might give it a try, but how far is the progress? Each of these little lightish blue orbs is basically what they've completed. If it's not filled in, it's not done. They're more, I guess, recent, soon to be upcoming big patch is going to include the multiplayer testing, as far as I'm aware, if not multiplayer in general. So right now, like I said, there's no multiplayer, so there's no trading or anything. The closest thing that you have to trading is, well, your stash between your characters, essentially, which should be shared unless you're playing a solo, which is basically Path of Exile solo self-found. And there is a hardcore version um, during character select once you open up the game, so that's no big issue. So now you're thinking, okay, you've explained some of the basics as to the game, but what about the end game? Is it easier, similar to Path, or even Grim Dawn's with them doing the arena, or I think Grim Dawn has monoliths or something like that, but we'll get into that in a moment. So, you got the game, or maybe you're here just to see some of the gameplay and figure out if you still want to buy it outside of the Steam trailer. But first, after you get your character and everything picked out, you decide if you want to play solo, softcore, hardcore, and all that. Um, some quick little tips to help you figure out a little bit about the game, I guess, in a manner. First, a little bit obvious. Hit the escape key, open settings. Here you can change your inputs to something more comfortable. Unfortunately, with the potion key, it's defaulted to 1, and I've tried, you can't use any side mouse keys, so at least not in my experience. I've tried, and yeah, see, I'm sitting here holding the bottom side of my mouse key, and it's not toggling that, so if you have performance issues, like some people might, of course, you're going to drop your graphics, change the resolution if you need to, and VSync or even limit your FPS. And you can't do both because it'll toggle that off if you try to limit your frames that way. And I generally don't have an issue ever running the game, but sometimes my screen will flicker. So if that's the case, then you might need to reset the game, update your graphics drivers. Um, while you're playing, you'll get new skills. The first couple will be added to your skill bar down here automatically, and you'll start gaining experience for them. And these will all have their own separate skill trees as far as what enhancements each ability can do. Now, if there's certain abilities that you want to change, you can. Um, Unfortunately, you only get 5 because this isn't like PoE. You don't get a hot switch or anything for your setup. And your left click is only for move attacks, move or break, and then just straight up move only. But all your other abilities can be moved however you want. Now, as you're leveling, you might question, okay, so I have all these abilities and stuff. How do they scale? You can actually just simply hover on what ability you're looking to scale, really, is your main setup for your class, and it'll tell you what it scales with on the bottom. Um, there's even more ways to actually scale your stuff. With these idols, they act like charms from Diablo 2. Um, you only start with, I think, 2 slots, like right down the middle here, and you unlock more by doing your side quests as you progress through the game. As you progress, you will also find items that have not these purple ones; those are end game. That's a different point later. But you'll find items that have certain abilities and stuff on it, or certain stats even. Some items, like your headpiece and your body, can actually get plus modifiers to skills. And with the crafting system that this game has, if you really want a certain modifier from items, all you gotta do is hit your F key by default, come down here and select the Shatter rune. And then if it's the piece that you want, you make sure that is the piece that you want to break, because it will break and remove all the item and all the stats. But you're not guaranteed to get the shards for the skill that you want. But with each tier, you have a chance of getting a shard. So like this tier 5 mana regen, it could roll between, I think, 1 and 5 being the most, since this is the undropped one. So we'll break that. See, it rolled 4, so. And then as far as crafting, you just basically take the item you want to craft, make sure you clear that. You have Guardian Glyphs, which help reduce the chances of fractures. You have a minor fracture, which basically just freezes the item, or bricking from Path of Exile, what have you. It just basically means you can't craft it anymore. It's halted. Any progress is done. So there's that. Like, it even tells you the odds for certain ones. Like, I have a 25% for a minor, which is the halted progress. Damaging will actually, I don't remember if it's downgrades your progress from 1 tier for everything, or like if it's random. And then same thing with destructive. After you hit destructive, it does something similar, but it's a lot worse. And it'll do, I think, 2 tiers, if not lower. And it's like a minor fracture. It'll stop it from freezing, minus the other penalties to it. Unlocking base item types is basically just leveling. So yeah, gaining more potion slots is by belts. The most you can have, to my knowledge, is 10 from a certain unique that gives you a defaulted 6, or I think it's 6 slots by default on the primary stats where it says on my belt it has 20 mana and then potion slots, and then it'll have another like 4 or 5 additional potion slots on the affixes. So after you start completing the game, around Act 4, toward the end of it, you'll come here toward the end of time, if I recall, and you'll get a certain area to go up here, and you'll go into a little portal or rift or whatever you want to say, really, called the Forgotten Realm, that you'll talk to this person over here for, and you'll go through there, and then on your passive tree, you'll gain the ability to master certain classes based on your base class, and mastering it gives you different benefits. When you master a specific class, it will tell you that you cannot change this. I don't know if they plan to change that fact or not, but currently as it stands, you cannot change your base class mastery once you've selected it. Not the base class. Of course, you can't change that without making a new character. So, anyway, but like I said earlier, this isn't PoE. You can't like hot swap toggle between weapon sets or anything. So if you wanted to experiment a little bit with the marksman build, you could, or whatever other masteries that you would have, and you only get about 50% of that mastery tree. As far as respecking with your abilities, you'd go up here. You can remove singular points, which just makes you have to farm XP for the point that you removed. Certain breakpoints, you get a minimum level, and then despecializing removes any specializations in that skill, so you could swap different skills out. Respecking your passive tree, you would just find the person that has this little brain icon over this way. But again, this is the end of time toward the end game, or at the end game hub rather, and you can just pay some gold and have the point refunded, and then you can move it wherever you want from there. As far as the end game, currently the only thing that they have is these monoliths that have these things called echoes, and each echo in some cases have multiple paths that you can change. And during these echoes, they kind of work like the maps from Path of Exile to some extent. You have the choice of what mods to add, and each modifier will have the ability to give more XP and item rarity, and you can even re-roll it to make it a little more difficult if you want. And like this one here, it says minimum echoes required for a quest echo. You complete so many quest echoes doing certain things, and at certain points with this one, and then the one that I have in progress down here for the level 75 zone, you can actually alter which areas that you would go to. So from this one, you could go, I think it's over here to Stolen Lands, which is a level 60 area, and I unlocked the 65 to 75, because this one is just one way here, and you have all these areas that you can unlock, and I believe the highest area is 95 or 100, which might be the one up here in this top corner. And it'll tell you the echoes that you've conquered, empowered timelines, and all that. And here on the map, you actually get kind of like the waystones from Path of Exile, where you get bonuses for beating the quest echo boss, which I'll have a clip of that further down with me beating the one here for the Black Sun. And these echoes, you can actually go through and just cycle out and beat the boss again to re-roll it because they actually do have ranges, as I'll show when I get this one. And you can just keep rolling the boss basically after doing the echoes again and again to get the top roll for what you want. And these benefits are actually throughout the entire game. You don't have to be at the end of time doing your monolith echo runs. Um, while you are doing echo runs, you'll, of course, like I said, as you level, you'll gain access to more base types. You'll encounter these purple items. This is what we call elder items, um, or exalted rather. Sorry. Um, as it says, each item caps out at tier 5 for crafting. Or the elder items cap out at, I think it's tier 7 is the highest that they can drop. And these will always be purple unless for whatever means you decide to try and roll off with a cleansing rune. Or no, not cleansing, sorry. Rune of removal, not renewal. Um, it'll take a random mod and remove it. Now, because this shared increased duration for bleed is the exalted mod, if I hit it with this and it removed it, it would actually just go down to a rare. As far as colors, rares being yellow. I don't know if there's any difference if it's a tier 7 mod or not. I don't know if you could roll multiple tier 6s. I'm sure you could, very unlikely. You do have your sets, which will appear green, like Diablo. Idols are these teal things, and it'll tell you in the name the idols. Can't craft on idols. You can't even put them in the forge to try and break them down. Of course, you have so many idle slots. It's a big old 4x4 grid. And then you have your standard uniques that'll be orange, which is bright as heck in some cases, depending on your brightness and your other settings, I'm sure. Um, so as far as the crafting goes, outside of the fractures that I mentioned earlier, I forgot to mention that. You only have room for 4 mods, outside of uniques being the exception. Same with set items. So this body I have here is actually at 60 instability, so it's probably likely that the moment I start trying to roll something on it that I would need, I'm going to likely break it. So let's say I need poison resist, but that's already capped out, so at least on this item specifically. For that, I'd probably just say I need, let's do necrotic resistance and see if we can hit it. Yeah, see, it just broke. It just says fractured minor. It basically means I just can't do squat with that anymore. And removing gear equipped items with bonus points, don't worry about it too much, because you can actually still add those back on when you equip it, of course. Boom, fractured again. And you can basically just keep going until you mess that up, essentially. As far as getting base types outside of the monolith, there's actually a gambler. I have yet to actually hit any uniques out of the gambler. I'm sure you probably could. But as far as I know, the highest that he opens is rares. And of course, you can get commons, which you can just use as a item base craft. That's actually not bad as far as the primary stats, not what's actually on that. And when it comes to doing these echoes, basically just go up to the monolith, kind of like I was showing earlier at the first one, where it says minimum echoes for the quest or your next quest. It'll give you modifiers to pick from. Of course, you can roll up for harder stuff, and then you also have the list of existing mods that you have with the bonuses that they all carry in total. Um, you could reset the monolith if you really want, and then of course area levels up here. And each echo will have different things that you need to do, especially with the quest echoes. Generally, with the main echoes, before you get to your quest echo, you'll have to clear out these little shrine chamber things that'll spawn monsters. You'll have to kill 2 or 3 certain elemental shrine things. Do not AFK in those maps or echoes, because you could actually potentially die to that, because they actually do track your location to some extent and drop a circular AoE around your feet to some extent. Um, and then there's some where you have to collect items, which the collection for items is mainly during your quest echo. If there's anything else that you feel like I missed, please let me know. I'll try and cover it next time. Aside from that, enjoy the clip of me killing the Echo boss and kind of giving you an idea of what to look out for as far as certain mechanics, because these bosses do have mechanics, and it's a thing. I should note that void resistance as you're leveling at certain points might be important. So I've realized that certain enemies have very hard tracking projectiles, and I do mean hard, like they will curve into you even though that you dodge it with a mobility ability or anything like that. It'll change its course pretty quickly. So your defensive stats will matter, and of course as you get further into the game, it'll be easier to cap it out when you have more base items unlocked that have resistance innately. So, like I said, enjoyed the clip coming up. Or before we go to that clip I was just mentioning, because I'm a goof, I forgot to mention when you do the monoliths and you die, you'll lose progress. You lose 4 points of your progression of your total conquered echoes, and after you do complete one of your echoes, you'll go to this little area. Here, let me go back toward my portal. So I just thought about this after I started one before I start editing this here in a moment and putting these clips together. You'll open a chest right here, and this chest has the opportunity to occasionally have this arena key. Now these arena keys, I'll go back to town since I can't really do this any other way. I could open the map, but still. So, you'll go up into this little area up here, and you'll see this endless arena. You'll take your key, slap that in, and then hit enter. Once you enter the arena, you can leave or continue in sets of 5. So every 5th wave, you have an opportunity to either leave and get your loot, or you can continue to press on. If you die in the arena, it doesn't matter at what point, you will retain all the items that you have within your inventory, because when you go to your next set of waves in between your little intermission or your respite, whatever you want to go on, it'll remove any items that are not gold off the ground once you continue or leave. They don't take the items to your stash or anything. So if there's something that you want, you will need to grab it then and there and put it in your stash, or sell something and make space if your stash is full and you've already got all the stash tabs bought with your gold. So yeah, just wanted to point that one out before we go to the actual clip, because I thought about it and somebody's going to ask, well, you didn't mention this about echoes, that if I died I'd lose progress, or what do I do with this key? Well, there you go before you think about it.